What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you a fun video about Black Geyser, Couriers of Darkness. So, just to give a couple explanations right off the bat, I was given access to their early access build that is going up on Steam on August 26th, about a week ago, give or take, from the time you're seeing this. And naturally, as I cover CRPGs, I wanted to share that with everyone as the coverage embargo lifts, which is probably right when you're seeing this, or at least right when it was published. So just to get a few things out of the way, there was a demo available. This is not the demo that I'm looking at. I actually got access to the early access, though they were also handing out demo keys as well to people through various means. I did also want to mention that I looked everywhere that I could find for an actual price point for the early access, and I could not find one anywhere. That's not to say it doesn't exist, but I'm just saying I couldn't find it, at least not in their press kits or their trailers or anything. I did want to mention that they have said it will be less than the full release version of the game. So moving on to just a few other things as well. The game was successfully kickstarted in 2018 after a few years of development already. It has a planned release of Q1 2022, and their early access period is expected to have 3 phases. Which is important because I want to mention that what I have access to is not those later phases, which will have some variations in certain systems that I'll mention at the appropriate time. Jumping into it with character creation. So it uses its own system by the looks of it. It appears to be heavily inspired by Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. You can see a lot of those similarities, and they did mention in some of the marketing that the game was very much so inspired by that age of games, Icewind Dale, Baldur's Gate, all that stuff. But the system itself does seem unique, and with character creation we can pick from a list of pre-generated characters, or we can make one of our own. This is going to allow us to pick from 5 races. Human, dwarf, and elf I feel like are pretty self-explanatory. Feldagug is actually kind of a snow elf. They're elves that have lived in harsh lands in winter time, so to speak, for so long that they, kind of morphed into a different race. And then there are the Rillo. The Rillo are kind of like orcs or trolls, really. They're just really big humans, but they have like elephant-looking tusks growing out of their face, which you probably can see there. The race that you pick is important for class restriction reasons. The race you pick will lock you out of certain classes, so that's an important thing to look at as you're choosing your race. And they will also confer other bonuses as well. In addition to that, there are 14 classes, which largely fall into one of the mage, thief, warrior type archetypes, if you will. And in addition to all of these classes, you can multi-class them. You can take up to 3 classes, which will adjust the amount of experience you need to then level that class up, of course. The attributes are pretty much what you'd expect, strength, dex, all that stuff. I'm not going to go into too specific detail because right now it's early access and is thus subject to change. So we're going to stick to a bit of a broader perspective for the moment. And continuing on from attributes, we of course get skills, which are always nice. Skills are a combination of 2 things really. They will confer conversation options potentially, as well as have effects on things you can do. So for instance, picking up force locks and stuff will of course let you force locks with more efficiency. However, picking up things like Prodigy, etc. will also let you use unique conversation options when you're talking to someone, kind of about being a mage, for instance. So most of them seem to have an effect that you can actually use actively to perform some function, and then they tend to also have a passive effect on other things as well. The appearance, honestly, some of the models are pretty basic, but beyond that, it's pretty standard CRPG fare. You can pick a portrait for your character, you can actually affect a primary and secondary color on your character's model, which will affect your clothing and stuff. Again, the appearance options themselves, a little bare bones, but that is actually fairly common for CRPGs because they tend to have that isometric view, and the way things look from that isometric view, as opposed to right up on the model when you're making the character, can feel a little different. So with character creation out of the way, we're going to talk a basic plot setup. Obviously, I'm not trying to spoil the game, as you might imagine, but the basic setup is that there is a civil war in the realm going on between the main part of the kingdom and a miners' guild to the south, who are having big disagreements. As the game unfolds, we kind of see that take place, but moreover, someone tells us early on, again trying to avoid spoilers, that the land has been hit with a curse of greed, which is a very far-reaching and hard-to-explain magic, according to this person. And we kind of see that play out in various ways because it means different things. and it's kind of the point of the game to figure that out. Greed is a mechanic that I will talk about a little later, and we'll swing back to it. But the basic plot setup at the beginning of the game is there is a civil war between two factions of a kingdom, and you find yourself kind of thrust into the middle of that, and this curse going on in the background as well. Now, I did want to mention, as you've definitely seen on screen by now, visually, this game is very similar to Pillars of Eternity. I would tell you playing it actually does feel a little different, which I was happy to see, but visually, the vibes I get from this immediately are just, this looks very much so like Pillars of Eternity. It is slight differences here and there, of course, and then actually playing it, it does feel pretty different. Now, I wanted to mention some specific cool little systems that I noticed while playing it beyond the fact that, it's a CRPG. When you have a party of companions and stuff with you, you can actually set which one of those people is the commander, which will be affected by certain stats and things, and then that commander can also pick a perk to then confer to the party, which I thought was a pretty cool mechanic. There is a crafting system that will let you dry and brew herbs and potions and things like that. It doesn't seem like it's for like armor and stuff, but it seems like you can craft like potions and things like that for yourself, which is pretty cool. I did want to mention that mages in this game are using a spell slots and a rest system to recover those spell slots, so that's the system they are going with. That kind of Dungeons & Dragons spell slot system you see at quite a few places. Also wanted to talk about companions. There are companions. It's a CRPG, so pretty much expected there. I haven't encountered all of them. I will hopefully have a separate video up eventually of the companions that I've found and kind of talk about them a little bit. But I did want to mention that the ones I have encountered so far seem fun, but they do have quests for you to undertake, which is always nice. And they do seem to have a pretty decent personality with what I've played around with so far. Also wanted to mention the world map. This is very similar, in my opinion, to the original Baldur's Gate. You can exit a map from certain locations, which will then give you access to other adjacent areas on the world map, which is kind of how you explore and find stuff for the most part. But beyond that, you are on a map, then you'll click the edge of that map to leave at the appropriate place, and then it will give you other areas on the world map that you can explore. Pretty standard CRPG stuff again. Combat, obviously an important part of it as well for many people, is real-time with pause. As far as I know, there is no plan to add turn-based to this, so just kind of getting ahead of the questions there. And the last thing I wanted to mention is the greed system. Best I can tell, this is not fully implemented right now, which is why I saved it for last. And it is mentioned in their early access phases, where I found that discussion on their Steam update. It is mentioned that that particular system will see some expansion later in early access, so I'm leaning towards it's probably not finished yet. But basically, there is this greed mechanic. Your personal character can be greedy or generous. You can be vilified or idolized depending on your actions. Your party can also have a reputation, if you will. And then there is the world, which will have a greed setting. The gist of it is your actions will either affect or possibly worsen the curse of greed that is on the land. I believe this is supposed to have effects on like how the world reacts to everything you do. And given the importance they're putting on this, I would venture a guess that it's probably supposed to affect things like quests and the state of the world as well. However, that's speculation. I'm not for sure. Again, a little light on details there. So there you go, guys. A bit of an early look at Black Geyser, Couriers of Darkness. Overall, very interesting title. I'm looking forward to seeing what they do with this greed mechanic, because I think that, if anything, is what's going to make this game feel truly unique. But so far, I am enjoying the setting. The story itself, a little bit of a slow burn at the start, a lot of dialogue, a lot of stuff to explain. They do give you a little bit of a tutorial, which I thought was nice. That said, that tutorial is a little basic. It doesn't really explain some of the terms you will have seen in character creation if you made your own character, which is something I point out because it annoys me when CRPGs do that. Overall, very promising. I am actually interested in seeing where the story goes. Only, I believe, the first 2 chapters of a planned 4 are actually available in the early access. So I don't have all the answers there, and I am looking forward to seeing where that story goes. Now, in terms of pricing, again, not really sure at the time of this video what that actually is. I'm going to ballpark it at probably around $20-30 because that is what I would say buying into this early access period would be worth. Now, I don't want to guess or anything because I don't want to give people the wrong information, that kind of stuff, but I would say if early access is in the realm of $20 to $30, then it's probably definitely worth that to check the game out, especially if you're interested and love CRPGs like myself, and if you're watching this channel regularly, probably you as well. There you go, guys. There's a look at the game. A few days early for everyone, which was really nice. So thank you to everyone watching. I wouldn't have ever been offered that if it wasn't for everyone watching and just showing the channel so much love. So truly, thank you. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.